8b, the Mishnah about 10 lines up. Okay, so I think we're actually kind of through the worst of the complicated scenarios, but we're not out of the woods yet. And in fact, this first Mishnah, it seems a little redundant, and the Gemara will point that out. We've kind of dealt with the principles in here already. Okay. You have three brothers, the first two of which are married to two sisters. Okay. So, Isho Bito, Isho Bas Bita. Or it could be the relationship between these two wives is a different one, like a mother and daughter, or mother and or a grandmother and granddaughter. Okay, but for any of these reasons, I'm just going to refer to sisters in general because that's what we've always used. But each of the women has no problem with any of the brothers. Okay, but because but they can't be married by the same person because of their family relationship. Okay, so obviously those first two husbands are doomed. So if the first two brothers die, and you have two widows that are sisters, so you do chalitza and not yibum. Okay, obviously you can't do yibum with either of them because you already have a connection to the sister, right? Since you're connected to both women and their sisters, you can't marry either one of them. You have to do chalitza. Rabbi Shimon Potim. Rabbi Shimon says, no, you don't even have to do that. Okay, he says that because of the nature of your prohibition of being able to marry either one of them, you don't even have to do chalitza. They're like, it's not even a situation to be considered. They're free to marry whoever they want. Now, if one of the widows was, so they're not sisters, okay, they're two women. Actually, wait a minute. Yeah, they are sisters. Yeah, if they're sisters, but also one of them is not eligible for marriage to the third brother. Let's say it's his mother-in-law, okay, or his daughter, whatever. So there's a sister. So he has an Isur Erva to marry one of them. So Asur Ba Mutar Bachosa. Okay, so he can't marry that one, but he can marry the other one, right? And there's not a problem that they're sisters anymore. Okay, because since he doesn't have any Zika connection to the one that he is related to directly. Okay, it's like she doesn't exist in this scenario. Okay, so then there's no problem with marrying her sister. Okay, because there's no connection. So it's not like being married to two or connected to two sisters. He's totally disconnected from the one that he is related to, and so he can marry the other sister. Isur mitzvah, Isur kedusha. But what if it's not that one is his mother-in-law, but one of them is a for some other reason, for a mitzvah reason or a kedusha reason, he can't marry her. So, for example, he's a kohen, and he can't marry a. Let's see, what would be a scenario here? That she's a widow. Yeah, like if she was widowed by somebody else first, so she can't marry a Kohen Gadol. So if that's the problem, if that's the nature of her, of how he is not connected to her, then chosos lamis yavmos. So that is not a strong enough connection. He still has to be concerned that he does have some connection to this woman, even though he's not allowed to marry her, but it's not an erva connection. So since he's not allowed to marry that woman, since he still has a weaker connection to that woman, he still has to do chalitza to the other one. Okay, because there is a connection. There is a weaker connection, but still a connection to both women and their sisters. So he has to do chalitza. Okay. Tanya, we have a brayso. Sorry, Shimon Pelter b'shtein mina chalitza mina yibum. So this was the first case of our Mishnah that two sisters. Then you don't even have to do chalitza. And what's the source? Shanamar, because the verse says, don't marry a woman and her sister, litzror, to make them rivals. Okay, so by using that extra word to make them rivals, b'shasha nasu tsaros zulazu, where the Torah is including a case where they become rivals. First, they were married to two different brothers, and now, if you were to, if if they're now eligible, both eligible for yibum to you, then you can't. That's included in the prohibition. You can't even make them rivals. So so then you're not even what the Torah is. What Rabbi Shimon takes the Torah statement to mean is that there's no connection between you and either of them, so you don't even need chalitza. There's just no connection there. Okay, if one of the widows was forbidden to the third brother due to some erva, like the mother-in-law, Hatulamali, what do I need this for? Like we've dealt with this already in the previous Mishnah. Hainulach is the same in the previous Mishnah, right? The whole scenario sounds familiar, right? Right. So the Gemara says Rabbi Shimon what we're telling you something new is about Rabbi Shimon's view that you don't even have to do chalitza. I might have thought, since Rabbi Shimon says if there's two sisters, they don't even need chalitza. So I might think that if there's I might think that when one of them is forbidden to you, is related to you, then the other one is also still off the hook. No, Kamashmol, it tells us that no, in that case, Rabbi Shimon would agree that since you have no connection to sister one, you now have the connection to sister two, and there's no barrier to that. Okay, so that Rabbi Shimon would agree that if there's two sisters and you have an erva relationship to one, then you still have to do you. Okay, Isur mitzvah. Now the Mishnah said, what if the connection to one of the women is not an erva but an Isur, like just a mitzvah thing? Then it's a different story. Then Rabbi Shimon would say, that in this case you'd still. I spoke too soon that this is easy, right? Rabbi Shimon would say that you don't need to do yibum or chalitza at all. But Rabbi Shimon said that there's no chalitza required here. So they should both be, and so in the first part of the mission, she said that they don't do chalitza. Why doesn't he agree here in the case of a mitzvah connection, or just a regular Easter connection that they don't do chalitza? So why does he say? Why is the Mishnah implied that Rabbi Shimon would say they do need chalitza? Well, answer is gezerah. It's an extra stricture. Mishum Easter mitzvah dialma, because people would think that. Let's say another case happens where there's two sisters, and you'd remember that case of Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, where Levi didn't even have to do chalitza. The same thing would apply here, but they would not realize that there was an Isur connection between Levi and one of the wives. Okay, and that's why he didn't have to do chalitza. But in a case where he has no family relationship to either of the sisters, then he would have to do chalitza. So Mora says, okay, that answers the question about why he doesn't do chalitza, why he has to do chalitza with the one that he's actually related to. What about the other sister? What's the requirement for her to do chalitza? Mora answers, mishum lasa dida, that we apply the same rule to the sister because of the first sister that he has the relationship with. Because if we let one sister off without chalitza, people will think the other one doesn't need chalitza. Wait, so why the difference? Like with the case of erva, we said, yeah, it's fine because he has an erva. She's sister or widow too, is his mother-in-law. I understand why she's not getting chalitza, but the other one needs chalitza. Why wouldn't we say that people would make that mistake? That, oh, she didn't need chalitza because they're sisters, and they wouldn't recognize the erva, that there's an extra factor here of erva. Everybody knows about that, right? That, oh, you know why he didn't marry or he didn't do chalitza with the first one? Because she's his mother-in-law, obviously, but the other one he has to. But in the case of a mitzvah thing, then it's not as apparent, or people don't like really notice that there was that relationship. Okay. It's not as good for the gossip mill, which actually, I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Next Mishnah digresses a little, and we're going to talk about mamar. So you remember that mamar is when a person has a yibum requirement, and there could be several wives, and he only has to do yibum with one of them, and then everybody else is off the hook. Well, and in any case, if he says to the woman, he does this thing called mamar, it's like an engagement, right, or a marriage. If he does a pre-yibum commitment, right, that's called mamar. So the Gemara is going to investigate that a little bit. Now, before we start, I want to mention a couple of things about personal status when it comes to marriage. There's obviously, you get married, there's the whole family issue and living together and so on, but there's also some personal status issues. And the ones that we're going to mention are, number one is hafaras nadar. So a woman makes a vow. So a man who makes a vow, he has to keep the vow. There's no getting off the hook, although there is always hafaras nadarim, where you go to a rabbi and you say, oh, if I only realized what I was doing, this was going to be so hard for me, I wouldn't have done it. And then he lets you off the hook. Okay. But when it comes to a woman can have her vows summarily dismissed with no justification by her father when she is a minor, or her husband when she gets married, as long as it's done on the day that he hears about it. Okay, so a woman makes a vow, her husband hears about it when he comes home at night, he can say, I'm not allowing you to have that vow. Okay, I'm canceling it. Okay, so that only applies to it applies to a father before she's married, and then it applies to a husband after she's married. So so that's one personal status issue where it makes a difference if you're married. Another one is owning, where if a woman dies, so her husband has rules about mourning, right? That he has to sit shiva, and there's all the various details of that. Okay, if you're not married to somebody, obviously there's no relationship. If you're married to her, then all these rules of death and mourning apply. And the third thing is tuma, right? The kohen, he's not allowed to become tamei to anyone except for 7 close relatives, including his wife. Okay, so it makes a difference if they're married. If they're not married, the kohen can't become tamei. If they are married, okay. So now we're going to talk about what's the deal with mamar. Which of these personal status? How do these personal status issues apply? Okay. You have 3 brothers, 2 of them are married to 2 sisters, and 1 is a bachelor. One of the husbands dies. Now, the 3rd brother, the bachelor, he doesn't do chalitza or yibum yet, but he does mamar. So he declares his intention to do yibum. So now he has this connection to her. Now, of course, the 2nd brother dies. So there's another widow, but now he already has a connection to the 1st widow. So Beishamai omrim ishto ima v'halazu teitze mishum achos isha. So Beishamai says, okay, he did mamar for the 1st one. They should stay together. They should continue and carry on and do yibum. And the 2nd wife, the 2nd widow, I should say, then nothing is required there, because by having done mamar, he's already started the yibum process, and so she is like, and remember, the 2 widows are sisters. Okay, so he's already, as it were, married to the 1st sister. So obviously he can't marry the 2nd sister. So there's no yibum requirement at all. Okay. But will say, actually, no, it's worse. It's like you can't marry either of them now because they're sisters. Okay, so you have to you have to send away, I don't know if divorce is the right word, but let's just use that. You have to divorce the one that you already committed to marrying, and you can't marry the second one either because they're sisters. So you have to, so with the one that you did mamar with, you have to give her a get and chalitza. So again, because this mamar thing is only rabbinic, so the rabbi said to get out of it, you have to give a get. But the Torah says mamar isn't really a thing in Torah law, so you have to do chalitza if you want to send her away. So you have to do both. And then you have to do chalitza to the second widow. Zuisha Amro, and that is about which they said, Oilo al ishto, the Oilo al ishasachiv. Like, woe to him about his wife, and woe to him about his sister-in-law. Like he can't have either of them. Zohil Mutimai says, what do you mean this is what they said about? What's another case that you might have said this about, but you don't? That is the case of Rabbi Yeshua. The law of Din and Kavase, that we don't rule like Rabbi Yeshua. Ella ikra Gamliel, ikra Eliezer. We may rule like Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Gamliel, or Rabbi Eliezer. What is this case? Okay, there's a three-way dispute, and by saying in our Mishnah that this is the case in which we say you can't marry either wife, that excludes the position of Rabbi Yeshua, where there's another case in which he says you can't marry either wife, but the other two opinions disagree. Now let's see what that case is. Rabbi Elazar says, "Lo tema mamar levei shamai kon kinyan gomer." Don't. Actually, are we going to see that? No, the Gemara is not actually going to discuss that. So, so the case that it's referring to is a Mishnah later on. So two brothers married to two sisters, where one is a full marriage and the other is a marriage to a minor child. Okay, so as you may recall, in the case of an orphan, in the case of most young women, the father has the right to marry them off. But if the father is not around, if he died, so the mother and the brothers can marry her off, but it's a provisional marriage and it's only rabbinic. Okay, so you have two sisters, one of whom is fully married to brother A, and the other one is a minor's marriage, a rabbinical marriage to brother B. So there we had this three-way machlokas where Rabbi Yeshua says we're going to count that minor's marriage as a full thing. You can't, as a partial thing. It's like neither here nor there. So you can't marry either one of them. So when the two brothers die, the third brother can't marry either one of them. And Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Elazar have different opinions. But by saying that our Mishnah is the one where you can't marry either, it's including that opinion of Rabbi Yeshua of that other case with the minor wife, where we're rejecting the opinion that you can't marry either. Okay. Rabbi Elazar says, "Lo tema mamar lebeis Shammai kona kinyan gomer." Don't think that just because Beis Shammai says that mamar counts here, that mamar is like 100% like marriage, like a full yibum. Because in the case of mamar, if you want, you can just give her a get, okay, to divorce her, right? Because you haven't done the complete marriage yibum thing. So since it's only a rabbinic connection, you can get rid of her with a get. Ella, I'm sorry. No, don't say that. Don't say that you can get rid of her only with a get. What is the function of mamar? According to Beis Shammai, it doesn't complete the connection between the woman that you're marrying, but what it does is sever the connection to any other wives. Okay, any co-wife. Okay, so by doing mamar with one of your brother's wives, the other wives are released. Okay, they can go marry whoever they want. Amar Rav Rabbi Yevamot says, "Afananami tanina be'shamai omri mikaimu." We have that in our Mishnah, which says Beis Shammai says they can keep each one. They can keep the wife. Like not that you can do this a priori. if you've done it already, then you can keep that relationship. Or if you had thought that mamar is like a full connection to the wife, right? Each one do mamar, and treat them as the wife. Since they don't allow that, they don't allow that a priori. We see that mamar is not 100% effective as a marriage connection. Elamai. So what do you say instead? That what it does is it rejects the other wives by designating one widow as your intended yibum. It frees the other wives. So the Gemara says, well, wait a minute. Okay, so each brother can do mamar, and so maybe you haven't done 100% connection to the one that you chose, but you have rejected the other one. So it's like it comes out the same, because sure, they're two sisters, but by each one of you doing mamar with one of them, you've rejected the other sister, and now you can take this sister. So what do you want to say? That a mamar that is in a permitted situation, like the normal situation, that works to reject the other widows. But the surah lodache, but if it's a non-sanctioned mamar, a mamar with somebody that you shouldn't have done it with in the first place, so that doesn't work. That doesn't reject the other one. Hachinami mamar. So I would say that the same thing you could say about acquiring the wife, right? Acquiring the Yevamot. So even if you hold that mamar is 100% connection to the woman, that only applies to a regular mamar where there's no sanction or there's no reason not to do it. But if you do mamar with someone that you really shouldn't have done it with, but it can still be effective, that is effective. That's not 100% effective. Okay. Ravashi taught this a little bit differently. Don't think that mamar is a complete rejection of the other widows, a complete severing of the connection to the other widows. To the extent that the co-wife doesn't even need chalitza. It's a partial severing of that relationship, but it leaves part of it intact, and so you still have to do chalitza. So Ravin says, to that, Ravin said, we have that in our Mishnah. Beishamai says that if you already did it, so you should keep the marriage, but not that you should have done it in the first place. If you thought that Beis Shammai thinks that mamar makes a complete severance of the other widows, so each one should do mamar and on one sister, cut off the other sister, and then you're fine with the sister that you married. But doesn't the Mishnah say, doesn't Beis Shammai say that keep the one wife and the other is not connected to you anymore? So that means that the other one is completely severed by this mamar, right? Ella, so what you have to say is Yevama de Chazil Chulu Chazil Mitzasa. A Yevama who is suitable for like the full yibum, then mamar applies to her. Okay, but or not mamar applies to her, but mamar is sufficient. Is also if she's eligible for yibum, then mamar works as well, 100%.
Is there dove? Is there a ceremony? Is there something that physically has to be said for mamar?
Yeah, we're going to come to that. That's a great question. We're going to come to that today. If it's a yibum that she can't go through the whole yibum process, she's not really eligible, then the mamar doesn't work 100% either. It's only partial. Okay. By Rabba asks, Mamar lo Shamai, Nisuin Osa or Erisin Osa? What is Mamar like? Is Mamar like marriage, full marriage, right? And here we're getting into what I spoke of before, the personal status issue. Erisin Osa, or is it more like engagement? Now remember that engagement is a legal step as well, to the extent that the woman is no longer eligible to marry anybody else, but she's not fully your wife yet either. Okay, so you can see where the parallel to Mamar, right? Mamar is like, I've designated you. You're not going to do even with anybody else, with any other of my brothers. Okay, but I haven't completed the process of Yibum yet either by marrying you. Amarle Abaye says, what's the difference? Ilema liyarsha. Okay, what are you talking about? You're talking about inheritance. That's another personal status issue, which I forgot to mention. Vilitamila, or to become tame to her if you're a Kohen, or to act as the renouncer of her vows. In other words, these personal status issues, are you asking about, is the husband a full husband with regard to these things or not? Hashna Arusa Bialmatani Rabbi Chia, Ishto Arusa Lo Onin V'Lo Mitamila. A regular case, no yibum, but somebody gets engaged to a woman, and Rabbi Chia says it's not yet a full marriage. The laws of mourning don't apply to her. The laws of becoming tamei to her, if you're a Kohen, don't apply to her. And also the woman doesn't mourn for the husband either, and the woman doesn't that's the only. The woman doesn't mourn for the husband either, because they're not fully married yet. She doesn't mourn, and she doesn't become tamei to her. So Mesa Ena Yarsha, and also if she dies, he doesn't inherit yet because they're not married yet; they're only engaged. Mesu Gova Ksubasa, but if he dies, she still collects her ketubah. So that was probably instituted to protect women, right? The whole idea of a ketubah is that women should not be left, economically destitute. The dissolution of the marriage. So the rabbis were a little more strict about when you assume that obligation. Okay, so if that's the case for a regular engagement, so a mamar, which is like, it's only a rabbinic thing to begin with, so of course there should be no connection, right? What are you even asking? So the element linya masir lachupa. So maybe what you're asking about is, is there a chuppah? Right now, the chuppah is like, if you go to a wedding, the chuppah is, right. It's the canopy, and that's a symbolic but meaningful execution of the idea that the husband takes the wife into his protection, into his domain, whatever, into his house, his household. So maybe that's what you're asking about. Maybe you're asking about, if you do mamar, do you still need a chuppah? Like, do you still need something formal to affect the yibum? So you're asking why? What's the rule? Nisuino says it like a wedding. Is it like marriage? So once you're married, you've done the chuppah already. There's no chuppah required. Odilma ersinosa, maybe mamar is more like an engagement, and you still have you still have to do some kind of ceremony, or it doesn't even have to be a ceremony, but you have to move into your house, basically, right? Before you're considered having completed the yibum. Amarle, so by answers, Hasha lo avad b'mamar ksiv yevama. Well, let me ask you a question, right? The Torah says, it doesn't mention anything about chuppah. It says, if you have the case where the brother dies childless, then the other brother, yavo aleho, basically that means, he has sex with her, right? You consummate this yibum. There's no mention of having a wedding ceremony with a dress and a chuppah and everything. No, talking about you sleep with her, and that's how it's done. So it would appear from the Torah that there is no requirement for this chuppah, this taking some formal way of taking her into the household. You sleep together, then it's done. Um, so um, so by the Torah saying that Baal Korcha, then that's like it could even be against her will without the chuppah. So if there's mamar, of course, chuppah is not necessary. Even for yibum, chuppah is unnecessary. For full yibum, you don't even need the chuppah. So why would you need it for after mamar? Like another way of asking the question is, you can do yibum without mamar and without a chuppah. So once you've done mamar, it should be no less, right? You could still go ahead and do yibum without the chuppah. Amarle, so Rabba explains, Shani Omer, because I say kolos and mamar birimto parchamimenu zikas yavamin. What I'm saying is, what I'm asking about is, I'm not asking about the personal status. I'm asking a yibum question. And the yibum question is, once I've done mamar, have I now severed the connection with the other with the other widow, with the co-wives? Okay, are we done now that I've done mamar? And there's a new and I have this engaged relationship to the woman. So what is it? What's the answer? Tashma. Let's see if we can prove this. Shomeres Yavam, a woman who is a widow and she's waiting for Yibum to take place. Ben Yavam Echad Ben Shnei Yavam, whether it's one brother or two brothers eligible. Rabbi Elazar Omer Yafer. Rabbi Elazar says the Yavam who hasn't taken her yet, but he's eligible. She's waiting for somebody to take care of this Yibum thing, so the brother can annul her vows, just like if he were her full husband. According to Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yeshua Omer L'echad V'lo L'shnayim. Rabbi Yeshua says, oh, that's if there's only one brother involved, then he's the one that can annul her. But if there's two brothers, I don't know which one is going to marry her, right? Which one is going to take her as in Yibum? So I don't know which one can do the vow annulment. Rabbi Kiva Omer and Rabbi Kiva says, Lo L'shnayim. No, until the Yibum is done, none of the brothers yet have the authority to annul her vows. So we discussed this. Okay, I understand Rabbi Akiva. He's like, even if there's only one brother, the bond isn't strong enough for him to annul the vows until he goes ahead and does the yibum. Rabbi Yeshua, I also understand Rabbi Yeshua. It's like, because there's two men here, and we don't know which one's going to end up being the husband. So that's why there can be neither of them can annul the vows. But according to Rabbi Eliezer, who says that either of them can annul her vows, even if I understand that he thinks there's a connection between them, right? They have the Zika connection pending the Yibum. So I understand why one of them would be allowed. Like, how do you explain, that either of them can annul the vows? V'yamar Rabbi Yami, what are we talking about? We're talking about where one of them already declared his intention by doing mamar. Okay, so then he can do the annulling of the vows. It's according to Beis Shammai. The Amar Mamar Kona Kinyan Gamar, who say that mamar is effective, 100% effective. Although I don't understand, like, so what they're saying is that not that either of them can annul her vows. No, the one that did mamar, even if there's another brother, the one that did mamar has a 100% connection to her to the extent that he can annul her vows. Okay, so so how does that affect our inquiry? Okay, so it seems clear that mamar is as good as regular marriage, right? Because this, in the case, according to Rabbi Eliezer, in the case of two brothers, one of them is in and one is out, because the one that did mamar, it's like he's fully married to her and he can annul her vows. The other has no connection. So then I understand Mishum Hachimefer. That's why he can do the annulling of the vows. Everything else, but if it's only like engagement, but an engaged the man who's engaged to a woman, he does not yet have the authority to annul her vows. So how can this case? How can you say that he can annul the vow? But now we have a Mishnah. Nara Hamara, a woman who is engaged. Via Ubala Mefir Nidareha. If you want to annul her vows, it has to be with the father and the husband together, because neither one of them is fully in control of her yet. The father has loosened control because she's engaged, and the husband has started to attain control, but he's not married yet. So they both have to cooperate. Okay, so that indicates that mamar is more like nisuin, because if we say that the one who did mamar can do the annulment, so that means it's like marriage and not like engagement. My mefer b'shufus. No, it's the same thing. It's like in the case of the two brothers where one did mamar, actually both of them have to cooperate, have to participate in the annulment. Okay, just like where you have the father and the engaged and the fiance. Right? Same thing. Here you have these two brothers that neither one of them is in full control, but together, like one of them is going to take her, one of them is going to do Yibum. So they both have to participate. So you can say that mamar is like engagement, because if you accept that both brothers have to participate in the annulment. Okay. Now, Ula Rabbi Elazar, the Amar, Mamar Leishama Anakon. According to Rabbi Elazar, who says that Mamar doesn't acquire her, according to Leishama. Elo Litchos Chatzar, but it doesn't make 100% connection to the woman, but it does sever the connection with the other widows. Amai Mefer B'Shutfus. So, like, why would you say that? Why do you need, 1 second. So if you're saying mamar is weak, so what do you even need this guy? Like, why don't you just let the father do just let the father do the annulment? When do I say that mamar is not a good connection, but it is a good severing of the other connection with the other widows? That's where you have a situation that a get is not enough of a severance. You also need chalisa, because remember, if you do mamar and then you want to cancel it, you have to do both a get and chalisa. A get for the rabbinic mamar, but since mamar is only rabbinic, you also have to do chalisa. So that's what I said. That's where I said that you have to do. That's where I say that mamar is not a full connection, in the sense that you also have to do chalisa if you do a get. But I wasn't talking about Hatar Sadarim, right? That's I agree with you that the husband doesn't, the fiance doesn't have to, that there's no connection. I actually say that the fiance does have a powerful enough connection. The only reason I said it's a weak connection is with regard to having to do a get and chalitza. But when it comes to personal status issues like annulling vows, that is strong enough. Okay. Or you could answer. Rabbi Lazar would answer, or Nachman bar Yitzchak, according to Nachman bar Yitzchak, who said that mamar is a complete engagement. Minicha, does that work? Mikatan yaferu yafer katani. It doesn't say that they have to do it in conjunction. It says the singular, that he can annul her vows. What we're talking about is where you have like a woman whose Yavam doesn't want to do anything. He doesn't want to do Yibum, and he doesn't want to do Chalitza. And the court ruled that we can't force him to do that, but he at least has to support her, right? He has to provide economic support. So if he hasn't done mamar, he hasn't done anything, right? She's still in a waiting for Yibum to take place, but because he is now supporting her due to the edict of the court, he acquires the right to annul her vows. It's an economic relationship. Like Rav Pinchas says, Rav Pinchas made Rava, calling Noderes, Aldas Balahi Noderes. What's the whole reason for the rule of annulment? Is that that the whole reason is that the husband has an economic interest in the wife's activities, okay, because he is required to support her. That's how he acquires the right to annul her vows, because something that theoretically could affect their economic arrangement, like, she's like, I'm never eating fish again, right? So like, but I like fish, or the fish is in our budget or whatever. Like, I'm not going to let you do that. Okay, so that's the source of the idea that the husband can annul the vows. And so similarly, which yavam, or which yavam candidate acquires the when do you acquire the right to annul the vows? When you do them, or when you have this case where you're required to support her, but it doesn't have anything to do with the strength of the connection. Are you fully married? Are you not fully married? Okay, we will stop here, and David will pick it up tomorrow at the top 38.
Thank you.
I will be absent for a few weeks. Hopefully for real this time. We're leaving for Israel on Sunday. I'll be there for almost 3 weeks. So I will, due to the time difference, I will not be. I've handed off responsibility for. I'm taking a leave. So
Okay, you deserve. I will see you soon enough. Be well. Enjoy.
Chag Sameach. I hope you have a good Pesach. And
Give my best to your family.
Thank you. Will do.